Jamal, California-based artist. I'm originally from the Bay Area, but I've been situated out here in Los Angeles for a very long time, so it's a split of the two, you know. We have a little family in LA, we have family in the Bay, so that's me, that's where I'm from. Yeah, straight. So, yeah. I'd say there's like an emphasis on lettering, symbols, but like printmaking, painting, you know, and it's open. You know, it's kind of like very you know, having to do with the hand, I guess. You know, utilizing various mediums as tools, you know, a little bit of digital, but more messing with, well, mess with video here and there, and yeah. Yeah, interesting. I mean, interestingly enough, always drawing and having that little space for creativity, finding space within that space when you're drawing. So for a long time, keeping sketchbooks and sort of working in that fashion, you know, and then working big and also like, you know, wall scale stuff, studying, learning, reading. Yeah, so that's an interesting one because from me, I feel like I kind of sit in the driver's seat, so it's just like whatever comes my way. But yeah, having worked in as, you know, designer, illustrator, you know, early projects and stuff, you know, doing editorial work, and then also creating artwork for apparel, I guess you would say, and then also that being what they call board sports, or, you know, surf, skate, and then but utilizing the hand and always having an interest in sort of like this, so the stuff you guys champion, you know, the letters, the type, but I don't have like a design, like I'm not a studied like design, you know what I mean, designer, graphic designer, but I have definitely like had my hand in the world, the graphic world as well. Yeah, and so then that kind of dovetails with some of the, you know, image making and lettering, and then the combining of those two things, and then living in the world of this practice, which is sign writing, and then having the opportunity to kind of like experience that by way of, you know, studying under a seasoned sign writer, and so like in the lightning round part of the Q&A, when we say like rules or no rules, I think like being a little bit older and then having an interest in like what it is, and then the discovery through the rules of like what's the reason behind like the way we like receive a lot of this information. And I think for me, like with signs, that's something I've just grown up around and always paid pretty heavy attention to. That's like why I think when we met, it was sort of like there was that thing, you know what I mean? And I think it's like when you talk about skateboards and stuff, there's like, we have these things that are shared. Signs is an interesting one because like, I don't know what year you graduated high school, but I'm assuming we were like in that little cusp area of seeing stuff from like the end of the 80s and beginning of the 90s, and sort of like how the world we live in, like that era is kind of going away. So when we see signs, usually they're like boarded up windows, and the interest in signs, I think for me, is like not so much like the design or the aesthetics of the sign, but it's just the core, like the symbol, the sign is the symbol, and like we're reading symbols, you know? And so I think that kind of like thing has just continued to open up, like the interest in signs and lettering. It's like the more you go, and then meeting somebody who knows a little bit more opens up like this whole world of like information, kind of, you know, and then it kind of allows you to understand the world that we inhabit and like why things are the way they are, you know. So then it kind of like, for me, it's just like I've just been on this path and I've been walking, and I feel like more things have been revealed to me more than anything, you know, and falling into messing with signs was just, it came more out of like interest, like working on an old car or something. It was more like, oh, like it has to have these parts, utilizing these tools, and then I don't know, it's really informed, you know, like my practice working as well, but in different ways, you know, like not in the way I would have expected, kind of, you know. I was thinking like signs, there's like this whole like it's this broad, I don't know. Okay, so like for the past, I would say, you know, I always say like, yeah, I've had this sign practice, running a sign business here in Los Angeles for like 3 years, but it's probably been more like, it's probably been closer to 8 years, maybe 10 years. I don't know. Like I've had the opportunity to kind of like do large scale, you know, hand painted, like advertising in the tradition of hand painted billboards or whatever, and that came early, and then you know, working on windows. Oh, man, there's a way to say it. I just the interesting thing about signs is that, and you guys feel free to cut this, however, but like the interest in signs for me was like always looking at lettering, and so reading in a way, and whichever way it came was like I would just see the ones that resonated, and I was taking photos and kind of looking at that stuff a lot, you know, so that informed my practice. But then it wasn't until later that I realized like, oh dang, like these letters on these walls, right, or this like address plaque, or this like sandblasted sign, or this like these temporary letters on the windows, the letters on the tires, when you pull up to the gas station and you see the numbers on the queue, that's all part of the sign practice. And for you, it's probably interesting in that way, where it's like a lot of this stuff is like part of the graphic, the world of graphics too, because like now modes of production are that we, you know, this stuff gets outputted. So those things kind of live together, but and a lot of those rules are kind of like come from the same place. But I think finding out like, oh, these are signs, that opened up that kind of opened up a door into the way that I think and look at and work at stuff. But like the general aesthetic, it's hard to say, but I consider it like one that fits within the legacy of the West. You know, it's sort of like when I look at Los Angeles, I think of like the old Westerns or something. You know, not like I was really into cowboys and stuff growing up as a kid, but I think it has that quality. And then also California, all these like, I think there's something like 21 missions up and down the coast of California. So to me, there's something about Los Angeles that is like older than the kind of temporary spaces that we occupy and kind of engage with when we're out here. And it's an interesting one where it's not really, you don't really see it in architecture. Like, you know, if you're in Italy or Berlin or something, like you're seeing like the thousands of years of history within the thing. But like Los Angeles, I think, has like Los Angeles and California, but I know specific to Los Angeles and other parts of Southern Cal is this thing where it's like millions of years of history kind of like overlapping, but you're not seeing it in architecture. You know what I mean? You're seeing it in like maybe so like considering the landscape, the volcanic rock, you know, the subduction, the geology, all that stuff is part of it. So aesthetically, I think there's like a heavy presence. There's a lot of like, you know, like that sort of like, oh man, I don't even know, like ghosts or something. Like, and even in Hollywood, when we mess with Hollywood, it's like so many people have come through Hollywood and moved around in these spaces that it's hard not to really like feel that presence of this like older time, whether it's like 60 years ago or 100 years ago or hundreds of years ago. You know what I mean? A lot of people have passed through here. And in a way, it feels like a juncture, like a lot of people still passing through to this day. You know, so aesthetically, there's a lot of it's pleasing to me, you know, when we consider signage and stuff to tie it back into that, because it's sort of like, there is still a lot of like the quality of the hand is still prevalent in this space, but a lot of stuff's being replaced too. But that's kind of part of the thing. I think LA has always kind of had temporary spaces.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think like a couple of years ago, well, more than a couple of years ago, I went to Cuba.
Yes.
And like there's no, or at that time there was no vinyl signage. Like,
Yes.
it was done by hand.
Yes.
And it was just like, oh God, thank you. At least
Yes.
there's like one place left.
Yes.
Despite how problematic.
Yes.
The government. So.
And even now, and even more so, because I was just thinking that, and we were just talking outside a little bit about Cuba, and it's like, yeah, it makes me think like, dang, yeah, like you're saying, like untouched, this one zone, you know, due to the embargo and like the absence of resources, but the amazing part of resourcefulness kind of being part of the thing, like to have a space. And for me, it's like, I'm not really so much like, I don't think that I'm necessarily nostalgic of this like other era. Like, I don't think it's like so much like, yeah, you know, like it's not like these old cars or something is what it is, but something about the quality of like people sort of, you know, this like engaging with each other and sort of like less techno, I don't know. I mean, I think that the new wave is a little bit isolated. Like we become isolated a little bit, and I think Cuba, I've never been, but you know, you almost wish that like the coral reef could stay intact forever. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of that area is relatively untouched.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. Man, that's a great question. I had no real plans, you know, like for me, I felt drawn to LA in a way. Like I said, we have a little bit of family out here, so I was able to kind of like make that happen. And I've been kind of traveling out here since like maybe like 92 or something. So there was like an energy out here that I gravitated to. But when I arrived here, it was just so active and abundant. There's like an abundance of people and like always meeting interesting people, and the level of diversity. You know, like all of California to me, I mean, at least the Bay Area and Los Angeles to me have a similar thing where it's like these are cities, and there's like a lot of people that inhabit these spaces, and you know, it engages like a lot of there's like culture to it, you know. And then I never made the decision, I don't think, to stay here. I just never left. You know what I mean? So I'm here now, but you know, I'm always, you know, to a degree, I always feel like I'm kind of like, not that I'm on the outside looking in, but I feel like I'm always like looking out. There's always new energy, and there's always like young people bringing something, and there is a little bit of like, it's spread out in a way, different than maybe certain other cities. So even though you could be in Los Angeles, you know, like the west side is very different than the east side, or like, you know, like, yeah, like I'm thinking more aesthetically and stuff. Like I do love seeing some of these, to me it feels like, okay, like, I guess the fact we're so close to the coast, I appreciate that. And it does feel a little bit like an oasis, or like the feeling of like a mirage or something. And some of these old like spaces, like the old service stations where you pull the car up, like those places are still there, you know, like that you would have seen in the 40s or the 50s or something. So there's like this, there's an interesting hybrid of aesthetics, and culturally, I like, or I have always appreciated that there are zones that you can kind of like engage with, and it's like otherworldly in a way, you know. And even where I'm at now, and I've always kind of messed around in the Northeast, you know, I'm kind of close to this sort of like zone that's like there's like Russian, Ukrainian, like Eastern European. There's like a heavy sort of vibe that I'm like, I don't think you could access that like anywhere in America. You know what I mean? And it almost feels like there are these portals in Los Angeles that give you access to these, just like a bigger, more worldly thing. Yeah. I mean, man, you have to follow your. Okay, so for me, I think intuitively, you have to be able to like follow your intuition as your guide. You know what I mean? Like if you arrive in LA, you might have ideas about what LA can offer you or whatever, but you also have to like be able to like know a little bit about yourself and understand yourself almost from like a different perspective, to know that there are things about you that you want to keep intact, you know, because like with Los Angeles, with these regions kind of down here, what do they call it? They call it like the Sun Belt, you know, so it's sort of like there's a lot of like action, you know, there's always been trade and like money and ways to like make stuff happen, or the fame or the success, you know, it's like you know, Los Angeles is like, when you go to other places, I think people sort of like, they look at it like, oh, this is like the home of the famous and rich, you know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of people gravitate to this region for those reasons. However, if you know what you're about, what interests you, and you can kind of like stay true to that, you can kind of cut through a lot of the nonsense, because there's like so much activity and stuff going on that it's like, it's fun to be able to like kind of like you know, ride the wave, you know, there's so much activity and stuff, you know. But I think, yeah, like I think it would be a difficult place to arrive if you kind of weren't grounded, is what I'm saying. Like if you didn't have something that, you know, people come for school, people come for work, people come for all these reasons, you know what I mean? But like you don't necessarily need those to like get it in, but you got to be kind of grounded and not so it's not so quick to get thrown off track. Because when I say the thing about the Sun Belt, there's the people who come here for success or fame, right? But then there's also like this whole other layer of people who are here to finesse. You know what I mean? They're trying to finesse people. So like this is like big. This is like a big thing, probably in big cities, other big cities as well. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people like running these other modes of business, which you got to just be like, man, you got to be mindful. There might be some quick money or some quick opportunity, but if you know what you're about and what you're here to do, like, you know, you can definitely hold it down and stay true to it, you know, and it'll be friendly to you. Like Los Angeles is cool. I think, and I'll end on this, like my issue with people coming to LA is sometimes people bring these like attitudes where they're like, oh man, like we don't really mess with that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and you have a lot of people that are like they think Los Angeles is superficial, but it's not really like that. You know what I mean? So if you bring this like preconceived thing, just don't come to LA and be a dumb hater, I guess is what I'm saying. You know, that's all. Dang. Okay, so many songs and so much stuff has come out of LA. Dang, it's crazy. I want to answer it in a cool way, because that seems like a setup for a big thing. Dang. Okay. So much stuff. It's so interesting because there's like so many new artists like coming out and doing stuff, and I pay attention to stuff to the best of what I can, and so I don't want to risk saying like something too far back, and I don't want to sound like I'm saying something new to get props. It's just that, dang man, I don't know, man. Like, dang. Okay, the legacy of like funk music pertaining not only to LA but like West Coast is like, that probably has to be one of the quintessential like most important things, I think, in my book, to kind of like happen. And you know, it's sort of like these things happen and they happen everywhere, but like really, and LA is a crazy place for venues and stuff, you know, because like a lot of stuff has like, a lot of people have come through, a lot of bands have come through, a lot of stuff has happened in LA where these are like LA moments, but like those people maybe not necessarily LA people and stuff.
Roger Troutman, Roger Zapp, it's interesting because like the P-Funk sound is such a sound that is like equated with the West. Definitely like that vibe that pops up in a lot of the West Coast, like hip hop and underground as well. I think it's like, that's like a very California, like kind of like riding type of sound quality that I think exists here, and kind of like I don't know, like prominent, you know what I mean?